Okay, I think I'm live. Hi, everybody. I was reading through some of your comments that are already here. I'm so excited to be starting this project with you. Let's see. If somebody could confirm that you can hear me and see me, that would be great. And I'm also going to ask Ned if he would confirm that this is working. I haven't gone live except for one time before. Let's see. Kim Smiley, you're here. Can everybody hear me and see me? Is this up and running? Hi. Okay, great. Cecilia says I can hear you fine. Okay, so we're going to go for it. So I saw somebody in the comments say they've already cast on because they're not going to be able to count and cast on while we're here. That's exactly how I feel, especially because I'm trying to read your comments and engage with you. So I cast on last night because I had work today, and I'm maybe 10 or 12 rows into my project, and I'm really happy with it. I stared at my iPad to make sure I put my markers in the right place, and it's a little tedious to get started. And I've got, let me see if I can lift it up to show you. I need to figure out how to get my normal cameras to do live so that I can have my normal angles. Right now I'm just on my laptop. So I have my little suitcase full of yarn so it doesn't move around, and this way I can seal it up and take it with me when I can knit on the road, when I can go on a trip. But it's a lot of stuff to keep organized, and we talked about that in some of the Zoom sessions. People that are working with mini skeins or advent kits, how do you keep all of your yarn organized? It's crazy. So I put mine in a little vintage kind of suitcase trunk. So hopefully my yarn doesn't get too tangled and out of order. All right. So this is it. This is our cast on. I know it might be more fun to do this as a Zoom, but I wanted to make sure that this kickoff to the make along would be something that could stay up here on YouTube that other people could stumble upon, even if they can't join us right now. So depending on your time zone, I know that some people are in Europe, some people are in Australia. So if that's you, you might be asleep right now. You might have stayed up late. It might be the next day. So people in the US, people in Canada might be here right now. And I'm so excited. I've been sifting through the Ravelry forums, and I know not everyone is a Ravelry user and not everyone loves to kind of meander through, I don't know, the difficulties of finding things in these Ravelry groups and chats, but it's great to see pictures of what people are doing, colors people have put together. So if you have progress and you're not already posting it to Instagram or to the Ravelry group, send me a picture. Take a picture of your stuff once you've cast on, and send it my way. You can send it through email. You can send it as a message. I'd love to see. Betty, I am looking a little foggy. I don't know how to not look foggy. Maybe it's my camera. I think it's the lighting. Now I'm in the dark. Now I'm bright. That's a little better, I think, if I turn off my above headlight, but then I'm in the dark. It's not perfect. If there's anything you want to check in about, put it in the comments and I'll chat about it with you. You also might need to focus on your cast on. And if that's you, you can mute me. You can turn me off. So one thing I saw scrolling back through, Jennifer asked, is anybody else using a different cast on? So for the sweater, the cardigan sweater at least, it calls for a backwards loop cast on, which I did use. It's sometimes a goofy cast on to use because it's weak. It doesn't have a lot of structure, but it is quick. I used it just because, I don't know, I'm going to see how it turns out at the end and why they wanted us to use the backwards loop cast on. But typically I use a cabled cast on for everything. I just like the edge it gives, and I find it easy to pick up into for button bands and collars. And so somebody answered Jennifer and said that you used a alternating cable cast on. Somebody used a German twisted. I think typically, as long as your cast on is flexible enough, you're not casting on in a way that's so tight, you're fine. And if you're starting at the top of your sweater, it's not a bad thing that it has some structure. Let's see. Somebody said, I hope your kitties are doing great. Our two youngest kitties are great. Our oldest cat, Big Cat, is not doing super well. We've been back for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks now, and he's acting a bit differently. He's pretty old. He's between 18 and 20 years old. We don't know exactly. I adopted him once he was already an adult cat, when he was between 5 and 7 years old. So he's not doing super well. He's still eating, he's still drinking, still super cuddly. He can still get around the house, but he seems to be aging pretty rapidly. So we don't know exactly what's going on. We went to the vet yesterday and they couldn't find anything super specific that's going on with him. So he got a shot of something that might help him with potential arthritis and joint pain. So we'll see. We'll see. They said it'll take probably 2 to 3 weeks to kick in. So we're going to keep an eye on him. But we're giving him lots of cuddles. He loves to be in our laps, kind of like on your chest or on your shoulder. And so we're enjoying all of that with him. I'm just sifting through more of the comments. Somebody asked, can a work in progress sea glass join in? Of course. This isn't strict. So some people have already cast on. Some people have been working on this for a few weeks now, and that's okay. Some people are truly casting on with the kickoff date today. I cast on last night because I knew I'm not going to be able to count and cast on while I sit here with you, and I didn't want to miss the start. I thought if I don't start it now, I don't want to be behind. I want to make sure that I'm keeping up with it, since I feel like I've made all of you commit to doing this as well. And I think we're all going to finish at different times because some people are working on a hat or a child size sweater. They have less fabric to create. It doesn't mean you're going to finish first, but your project might be smaller than somebody doing an adult size sweater. So we're all going to finish at different times. I think that I'll keep all of these events going through at least March, and then probably by the end of March, I'll wrap it up and we'll keep the Ravelry group active. So as people finish, if you finish after March, post your pictures, keep asking your questions. But every month between now and March, we're going to have Zoom sessions together, probably 3 dates each month. And I'll go live occasionally, and I'll keep making videos that are related to sea glass, whether that's the technique or colors. One thing I want to do, and I haven't reached out about this yet, but I want to try to set up some sort of interview with Sweet Georgia, with the yarn company, to see if they would be able to talk to us a little bit about how they create their colorways. They have such a large range of colors, and they're in different lines that are all very cohesive with each other. Let's see, Susan Post. Hi, Susan. Where is the best place to post progress pictures? If you're in the Ravelry group, there are 2 threads there, one about colors people are choosing and another about which project you're making. I'll probably go and start another thread about progress, calling it, I don't know what I'll call it, but I'll make another thread. So if you're comfortable posting a picture to Ravelry, you can do it there. But if not, you can send them to me an email. I just want to see people's progress. I want to see what everybody's projects look like. But there is a Ravelry group. And if you're on Instagram, you can post using our hashtag, which is SeaGlassMAL, Seaglass Make Along, or Mark Along. And that way, if you go click on the hashtag, it'll show you all the other results. So a few people have done that, which is fun to sift through. Dee Dee says, be careful with the backwards loop cast on. Once you start the next row and you're working into it, it's helpful if you have a very pointed sort of lace tip needle, which is true. For the cardigan, after the backwards loop cast on, you turn your work and you do a wrong side, you purl across. And I find it easier to purl into the back of the backwards loop than it is to knit if you were working in the round. It's hard to get back into a backwards loop cast on sometimes. Susan was asking, what kind of join is everyone using? Is there anyone that has used the magic knot a lot? Good question. Hopefully some people can answer. I'm doing the cardigan where we have our 5 edge stitches. And so I'm snipping the 3-inch tails each time, and I'm just going to follow what the pattern says and do the tying to create that sort of faux I-cord. Let's see, Anne, first time for live chat. Welcome. Very chilly here in Nova Scotia. That sounds nice. In Cleveland, it's been cool this week, sort of the first cool week we've had, and I think it's only going to get cooler now. At least that's what the weather looks like. So it's a little warm in my house. I'm on an upper floor, but I'm excited for the cool weather. Let's see. I'm worried about yarn bleed. I've ruined a few other colorwork projects when I went to block. Yes, you can wash your yarn in a hank. If your yarn is already caked, it can be dangerous to wash it because it won't necessarily dry. So if it's already wound into a cake, I wouldn't wash it, but you can unwind it. You can pull, you can wrap it around your arm. If you have a Swift, I have mine here on my desk. I don't know if I can get it into the frame. Pardon my tea. If you have a Swift, you can reskein your yarn, tie it around one of the slats, and then manually turn the top of the Swift to put it back into a hank. And it's pretty easy to wash a hank of yarn. You just put it into some water to really saturate, and then you can run it under room temperature or cool water until the water runs clear to get all of that over dye out if you're worried about color bleed. And once you've rinsed it and you've gotten the over dye out and your water is running clear, just like blocking something, you can press the rest of the water out, and then you can lay it to dry. You could hang it off of a hanger. If it's nice outside, you could put it outside to air dry. You could put it in a room with a fan going. So yes, a lot of people do choose to pre-wash their yarn, especially if the yarn recommends it. And I think actually Sweet Georgia yarns, which I've never had trouble with them bleeding, they do say on each skein for color work, pre-wash or pre-rinse your hanks of yarn, which is a good recommendation because that way they warned you. But I've never had trouble with Sweet Georgia, so I don't pre-wash that. But I have had trouble with other hand dyes that are just really saturated. Reds, deep blues, black. So depending on your yarn, if you've never used it before and blocked it successfully, you could consider doing a rinse. But I would reskein it. Let's see. There's another good question. Sorry while I find it. Macarena, you asked, is it okay to ask questions about deciphering the pattern? I don't want to talk about any pattern details here because this is a public video. So if you have a pattern question, you could post it in one of the Ravelry groups and somebody could privately write back to you, or you can email me and I'm happy to decipher and write back. Kim Klinger, weird glare. I know. So I'm coming to you live through my laptop. And when I film my videos, take a quick tour with me. Don't mind all the mess. There's my yarn wall. I've got my above head camera with a light. And then I've got my front facing camera with a light. And I normally wear a microphone, so the sound is, the sound is better and it's more direct. I can speak really gently and the microphone's right here on me. And I know that it is possible. I have to use an external software to run my cameras into my computer And then I can do live streaming where I still have an above head angle, I have the front camera, and I want to figure that out. But I haven't figured it out yet. But I need to practice. And then maybe by next month, whatever we do here in a live session will be better quality. All right. Kim asked, how do you keep the end stitches tight? It's a good question. So with our 5-stitch edge, you can see how loose mine gets. And so I go back through and I yank on those tails to snug up those stitches. But when I'm joining a new color, when I'm starting a new round or new row, I really just anchor that yarn. I try to pinch it with whatever my free hand is so that I can work those edge stitches without it coming too loose. But no matter what, those edge stitches are going to be looser. And once you start tying off the ends and sort of zipping up that I-cord, that's when they're going to be secure, which is why we have 5 of them, so that by the time you get to the real fabric for the project that will be seen, hopefully the tension is established, which is always tricky with something where you're adding new colors all the time and you can't just carry them up, if they're far enough away from the last row where they were used. Let's see. A lot of people are weighing in about rinsing the colors and making sure you're not going to have color bleed. And something else that I like to do is use a color catcher. I had never heard of these until I experienced yarn bleed, and then I looked up what to do, and everybody said use a color catcher. They look like dryer sheets, and you can buy them. I bought mine online, but they came from like a laundry detergent company, like Tide, something like that. And it looks like a dryer sheet. It goes into the water. It can go into the washing machine as well. And if you're washing something that might have color bleed, the idea is that the little sheet, the color catcher, will absorb the color bleed so it's not imprinted onto other garments or other parts of the same garment. So when I'm doing my first block or my first wash of anything that has multiple colors, I throw one of those in there now. And it was pretty inexpensive, something like maybe $5 or $6 for a box of 50. And I thought that'll last me essentially 50 projects. Or if it's a really big project like a blanket, I might put a couple color catcher sheets in there as I block. But if you're using yarn there's no real rule about it, but if you're using yarn that's from a pretty big company, and if you've ever used it before, and if you know people have used it for colorwork projects and they've never told you a horror story, then hopefully it's just not an issue. But never say never. So I don't worry about it. I will put a color catcher in when I block my sweater, but because I've used Sweet Georgia for several other colorwork projects, I doubt it would happen. But you never know. I also had success with a project that did bleed, going back in with like dish soap, putting dish soap on the parts that had bled, let it sit for like a full 24 hours until it dries out, and then reblock it and give that kind of a gentle, those spots, gentle agitation. And it did help get some of the bleed or most all of the bleed out. Great tip from Sandy about a salad spinner. If you have wet hanks or a small wet project that you're blocking, put it, in a salad spinner and get more water out of it. All right, Kim Klinger, waiting for this episode. I made my yarn decisions and bought the pattern. You're ready now. Perfect. Awkward Human says I'm still glowing from my honeymoon. Yeah, I look ethereal. I have a glow all around me. Yeah, somebody asked, Marissa Dawn, is it okay if you don't cast on until December so you can use an Advent kit? Of course. A lot of us are going to be working on our projects through March, maybe even through the summer. Um, who knows how long? So definitely, you can look at people's pictures, look at their color combinations, and I don't know, use all of that as food for thought. And then once you get your colors, you'll know exactly what you want to do. Clawtooth said, I think you need to take a glasses cloth or something to the camera. I know. All I have is yarn. I don't know what'll happen if I rub yarn on the camera. And then Kim, thank you. Glare hasn't kept me from watching. Thanks. Um, no, I appreciate when people give me grace about video or sound or editing. But I'm really trying to do all of this in a professional way. And if I can fix something, if I can make it better for the next time, I think it's worth it. So I really do want to figure out how to have my actual cameras and my multiple angles and my microphone plugged in so that I can do live streaming with that. All right. Funny people. I love these comments. Let's see. Clawtooth, I'm doing a second swatch. And did you swatch using the 5-stitch edge? I don't know if that question was for me or somebody else, but I did not swatch using the 5-stitch edge. If you want to practice the 5-stitch edge and go ahead and kind of get it memorized, then I think it's nice to do it for your swatch. I did the first 2 or 3 stitches of each edge, so the first and last 2 or 3 stitches with both colors held together, which makes the edge of my swatch much heavier and a different gauge. But I probably had 30 or 35 stitches, so I would sacrifice 2 or 3 on each end for holding 2 colors together to anchor them, which is similar to what happens in the 5-stitch edge. You have 1 or 2 stitches that you use both colors for, and then the others with just alternating. And I wrote down a cheat sheet. So my cheat sheet has the 5-stitch edge for row 1 and then row 2. And I also have my color order written down on my cheat sheet, just in case my colors get all mixed up. I can refer to that. But once you get into the pattern, I think for really everything, if it's a sweater with increases, you know how often you're increasing, and then you're just using every other color and you have markers to show where you're increasing, it's pretty easy to do the work without staring at the pattern. But I'm only 10 or 12 rows in, and I have not yet memorized what happens with those 5 stitches in row 1 and row 2. Somebody says the ends are making me start to sweat. Don't worry about the ends. I think all of the patterns have something built in to manage it. If you're doing the hat or the cowl, you're working in the round. So when you finish one color, you start the next, and you can go ahead and zip them up. You can go ahead and tie them off or secure them as you go so that it's not just there stressing you out. And same with the cardigan. If you have all of your goofy cut edge stitches, I'll probably go through each week and start securing them. I still have to watch the video from Wool and Pine to see exactly what happens. But I'll do it so that it's not so much to do at the end. Kim also said, oh, I remember that episode. I think about my color bleed sweater. I was so upset. It was the most expensive yarn I've ever used. It's from a farm in Michigan, which is pretty local to me. It's only like 1 to 2 states away. And I was so bummed. It was so much beautiful fiber, and I really love the colors. It's a sweater for Ned, and it ended up being okay. If it were my sweater and I were wearing it to the yarn shop and wearing it around knitters and crocheters, they would notice. They would see the spots that still have some bleed. But fortunately, Ned's crowd, well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, Ned's crowd consists of sort of people outside of the fiber world for the most part. So nobody's going to be sitting behind him staring at his sweater pointing out the bleed. I think they're not going to notice it in the same way that we might notice it. Clawtooth says, I've always thought it would be fun to be inside a salad spinner. I would be sick. It would probably feel like being on one of those playground pieces of equipment where everybody has the pole they hold on to and somebody runs around the outside edge and spins everyone. Let's see. Someone asked, are you all using fingering weight? People are using all sorts of things. So the t-shirt is fingering weight. It's written for fingering. I know the cardigan is written for DK or holding fingering double. And the cowl, I think it's pretty cool. The cowl pattern says use whatever yarn you want. Use whatever weight and then choose a needle size that helps you reach the gauge for that weight of yarn or that makes a fabric you like. And for the cowl, where it doesn't need to work out to be a precise dimension, it's okay if it's a little off, as long as you're not making something that's the size of a blanket when you wanted it to be a cowl. So it's more about finding a needle size that works with whatever weight yarn you already have or the yarn you want to buy. Kathy says, I'm still trying to figure out how to keep the two strands neat while I do color work. I think that's always sort of a challenge. Keeping them somewhere separate, even if they're both over the same finger, finding some motion to keep them organized is super helpful. I find that when I have two colors or more, it's helpful to keep them in different geographic zones. So even if they're both coming over one finger and working from one hand, if you're throwing them both English style or if you're picking them both continental style, I'll put one to my left and the other to my right. So if they start to get tangled on my finger, I can drop the yarn, separate the strands because one is on my left and one is on my right, and then pick them up again without them being tangled. If they're right next to each other in a project bag or wherever you're crafting, if they're in a basket, whatever you're using for storage, I think it's much harder to get them untangled. And when you have a lot of colors going and you're in the middle of your project, that's not fun. So I think whatever you can do to help yourself, find some system that your main color, if you're using a main color, always lives on your left, and you keep each contrast as it's being used on the right. And if it's the issue of the contrast getting tangled, then maybe you have a different place for all of them. And I've done projects where I have 3 or 4 colors in some sort of like Icelandic or Norwegian style colorwork sweater, and I've put them in different project bags. I'll use the smaller drawstring bags that people use when they're making socks or something where it's a small project. And I'll just keep my yarn in separate bags. So if they start to get tangled, I can untangle the bags, but they're never close enough to really get felted together or knotted. Because sometimes it gets bad enough that you have to actually cut everything and start over. And if you're not planning to cut as you go, then it's nice to just keep them in different places. Jasmine recommended I keep the 2 colors wrapped in opposite directions around my index finger. That's definitely great. If you can wrap them differently or have them tensioned over a different back finger, it's nice just to keep them separate. Let's see. Emily D. Knits said, I'm doing a fingering weight, went up about 5 sizes. I love that. So if you're using a much different weight of yarn from what the pattern calls for, and you've done your gauge and you've plugged it into your own calculator, or you've used the online calculators that are out there, it's great to know, okay, I need to go up or down several sizes. And then on that note, and I've said this before, I'll just say it again in case anybody's here for the first time. The best thing you can do to make sure whatever you're making will fit is to try it on constantly. So right now, I'm only 10 or 12 rows in. There's not really anything to try on, but I could still lay this over my shoulders and make sure that it's coming at least around my neck with enough room. If I were way off gauge wise and I tried to put it around my neck like a necklace and it doesn't even meet, then I know, okay, maybe I'm not making a big enough size. Or on the other side of that, if I want it to kind of lay around my shoulders and stop where a cardigan would stop, but it's way bigger than that, it's folding over itself, then I might be making too big of a size. I might have too many stitches. So if you've skipped over a bit of your gauge work, you can still check it once you start making whichever project you're making. So try it on constantly. Every time you get an extra 2 or 3 inches of fabric, try it on again. Hold it up, put it next to something else that you like to wear, just to check. All right. Hi, Donna in Indianapolis. Let's see. Sorry, my comments skipped around, so let me go back and catch up where I was. Andy asks, Mark, how many people signed up to do the knit along or the make along? We have 280 people signed up, which is crazy. I think that's great. When I posted it, within 24 hours of posting the Google form and sharing that first video where I said, it's official, we're doing the sea glass patterns, I think we had 50 people sign up in that first day, which I thought was amazing. And then in the next day, it was another 50. So we were at 100. And then in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it doubled to 200. And then I think after posting something, maybe it was my gauge video, which everyone watched, which was great. I made my gauge video. I filmed it twice because I wasn't happy with it. And each time I thought, I need to do this again. I need more gauge swatches. I need to show more in detail. I need to follow through and actually show what happens next. And I still believe that, because when I think about making these YouTube episodes, I often want them to feel like an episode of a show you'd see on TV. So whether it's a how-to or just a scripted episode of something, I want it to have some sort of exposition where you're interested in what we're going to do. I want it to develop and have ups and downs, challenges, things that we tackle. And then I want it to have some sort of closure. So you leave feeling like that was a fun video to watch, or that was a peaceful video to watch. And if it's anything teaching related or technique related, I want it to feel like, oh, that was really clear. Now I know how to do this. And because I often don't know what I'm doing, that can be hard to do. So when I think about certain videos I want to make, I want to pour a lot more into it. I want to spend more time preparing, more time filming, more time editing. But at the same time, I have other jobs. I have other things that I have to go do. I have to show up and do. So there's not always time. And also, I don't want to keep editing and keep chipping away at something, because then it feels like you'll never reach the finish line. So anyway, I put that gauge video out because I wanted to cover a couple of questions specific to the make along, and also just talk about gauge again, because I think it's great. And if I can spread the gospel of knitting a gauge swatch, I want to. And for whatever reason, people watched it. It got 4 or 5 times the number of views it would normally get in the first day. And then people have continued to watch it. And now I think it has something like 20 or 30,000 views, where a lot of videos I post get 2 or 3,000 views, which is great. I didn't know what would happen when I started putting things out on YouTube. I really thought that people would be like uninterested. I thought they would be put off by me. Not that I'm the most off-putting person, but when you meet someone, when you get that first impression, not everyone is made for you. And I don't want to force myself. I don't want to force anyone to spend time with me. So I've been very surprised, and it's been very nice. It feels like a nice embrace that people are being very kind to me. And in return, I want to be kind to other people. And that's something we talk about a lot on the channel. So anyway, after that Gauge video, getting views and reaching people that were seeing me for the first time, that 200 jumped to now 280, which is great. So I think we'll probably get more people joining in the coming weeks. And I think eventually, once we're into the make along, people that stumble upon this and us will say, okay, maybe I'll do the next thing. And that's fine too. All right, back to these questions. Oh, great question from Marilyn. Marilyn says, if my bust measurement is 40 inches, do I make a 40-inch garment? The garment sizes, at least for the cardigan, are listed as the finished measurement of the garment, which means if you make a 40-inch sweater, it will cling to you. And typically for sweaters, we want some sort of positive ease. We want, I don't know, at least 2 inches of positive ease, maybe 4, 5, 6. Some people want a lot more if it's like a boxy fit or something that you want to be oversized. Typically, I want, excuse me, between 3 and 5 inches of positive ease, because I might wear a button-down shirt. I might wear a long sleeve shirt under a sweater. So if your actual measurement is 40 inches, I would aim to make a sweater that's going to measure at least 43 or 44 inches and kind of up to 45 or 46 inches. And the other thing is to consider your gauge. If you're right on gauge, where your number of stitches would equal 40 exactly, 40 inches, then yes, definitely go up. My gauge, I've kind of flipped things around, and Sandy asked for me to show my final color arrangement, which is, it's going to look silly on my foggy camera, I'm sorry. My final color arrangement starts with blue, then gold, then purple, then teal. It's very light blue there, but in the skein, there are more teal parts. Orange, green, to a sort of a reddish violet, which I think makes a beautiful kind of rainbow. I think it looks kind of like sea glass. So those are my final colors. But the other thing to throw into the plan is that I ended up doubling my yarn at the last minute. So if you felt tricked into making a fingering weight cardigan because of me making a fingering weight cardigan, I'm so sorry. You can still do it, and it's going to be great. Because I am fairly large, I was just thinking about it, and I was like, that's going to be a million stitches in every row. And so I just wanted to try doubling it. So I swatched again yesterday, and I'm doubling it. So for me, my gauge is now a little bit bigger than the gauge I should be getting. So I'm making the size one down from what I would really wear, because my actual measurement is going to give me a size that ends up being 3 to 5 inches larger than my actual circumference. I'm just running my mouth here. Sorry if that's too much, but Marilyn, I hope that answers your question. If you measure 40 inches, make a sweater that measures 3 to 6 inches larger than your actual measurement. So yes, go up to a next size. Okay. And then Lisa weighed in on that same thing, 40 inches plus ease. Yes. Okay. I love all of the answers. I love seeing people answer everything. Tony, you were asking about the actual pattern, clarification for the row after the initial cast on. So the row after the initial cast on, and I won't give any numbers to talk about the pattern, but I will say when you cast on and place your markers in the second row, you're increasing quite a bit. So the initial number of stitches will be used later to pick up for a collar or a button band to finish the sweater. So in that second row, you're increasing to help start the shaping, which for the cardigan is a raglan shaping. But Tony, feel free to email me with a question if it's very specific, and I'll email you back. Lorna, hello from New Zealand. Hello. Let's see. Thank you for a very, very kind comment. I'm glad you're here. A Torres says, I think I have to do this knit along. I wasn't going to because of other projects, but this looks like fun. This is fun. I'm glad it looks like fun to you. Let's see. Everything skipped again, so let me scroll back to where I was. Thanks for the patience. I feel like it's so weird to go live. I don't love it, but I love all of you, so that's why I'm here. All right. Jasmine, do you block it to try it on when you test? So depending on what you're using, no matter what, whatever you're making will grow a little bit. If you have a really, really tight tension and you're using a yarn that won't grow too much, like a non-superwash or a cotton, then it's not going to grow substantially. If you have fairly loose or moderate tension, I have a little bit loose tension, not super loose, but I'm on the looser side of moderate, and I'm using superwash yarn. So my sweater will grow quite a bit. So if I hold up the sort of 4 inches of length I have now, and if I give it a gentle stretch, I'm just pulling gently, you'll see it stretches out to add like an extra inch to an inch and a half. And that's across about a 4-inch measure. So if my full sweater is 28 inches long, it might grow by 4 inches when I block it. It also might grow more widthwise. So it's not just going to pull, 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 and the stitches lose their integrity. The stitches are still going to look balanced, and it's going to grow sort of in a proportional manner width and lengthwise. So if I'm making a superwash sweater, I'm going to count on some of that growth. So as I'm trying it on, once I get to the underarm split where I put the sleeves on hold and join the body in the round, I will imagine a little bit of growth. I want it to hit my underarms, but I know that when I block it, I'm probably going to get at least another inch there, if not an inch and a half. So I can consider that. And especially for the full length of the sweater, I'm not going to knit until it's as long as I want it to be. I'm going to knit until I'm 2-3 inches shy of the total length I want, because when I block it and when I wear it, gravity and the fiber itself are going to cause it to grow. So depending on the yarn you're using, depending on your tension, yes, the sweater will grow to a certain extent. And for me, using a superwash, which grows a decent amount, and having a looser tension, I know I'm going to get width and length, which I count on. I typically make sweaters that are a couple inches shy of the circumference I want. It still has ease, but if I want 5 inches of positive ease, I'll choose the size that gives me 3 inches of positive ease. And I know that in the blocking process, I'll get another 2 inches. So really depends on what you do, what your technique is like, and what fiber you're using. So if you're using something you've used before and you know that it grew quite a bit, you can add that into your calculations. but make sure it's going to fit. It's better for it to be slightly oversized than for it to be too tight. And if it's a little too large and it bothers you, and in the future it feels larger and larger, you can always come in and do certain things to adjust it. You could potentially pull out some of the ribbing at the end of the sweater and bind off with it being shorter. You could also add some seams. If it's just too big around, you could gather at both edges and go in with needle and thread and kind of tack it. And then, of course, you have a little more bulk on the inside, but it might feel better to wear. So there's a lot we can do to kind of give our projects surgery in the future. Let's see. Yes, Anne said 280. Wow. Yeah, 280 people. And of those 280 people, there's no like contract that you've all signed to say, yes, I'm definitely making this. But 280 people felt interested enough to go fill out a form and say what they were going to make and sign up for the newsletter at least. So I'm thrilled with the engagement we've had. And right now we have, it looks like 143 people watching live, which I think is great. And some of you might have just stumbled here. You might have no clue what's going on, and that's okay. Sorry for the silence. I'm just reading. You're all so nice. Thank you. Let me just have a sip of something. The first time I went live, I sat here and I talked for like an hour without stopping. And it was exhausting. I felt like I was a teacher in a classroom where you just talk, and it's hard on the voice. I need to calm down and relax. Myra says, am I the only one having trouble already? Row 2 of the cardigan raglan setup is giving me fits. Not a good omen for success. Don't sweat it, Myra. If it's giving you a lot of trouble, come into the shop and take a look at it with someone. The whole idea of the second row of the raglan setup is that you are increasing rapidly. You're just adding a lot of stitches. Jasmine says, I want like 15 inches of ease. That's funny. Yeah, I think that if I don't know, if I weren't tall, I might like the idea of something really oversized, but all of you know what it's like to have insecurities about your figure, whether it's your height or your weight or your shape, anything. So I've always been tall for my age. When I was a kid, I had my growth spurt early, and I've always been heavy. And so as a kid, when my peers were like a foot shorter and tiny, and then there was me, it felt awkward. It felt goofy. So when I wear things, I like a very moderate amount of ease. I don't want my clothes to look tight, but I never make things that are terribly oversized because I think it would just make me feel monstrous. Also, in the video I posted in Dublin with Lisa, This Is Knit, I was going to put something on screen about it, but I didn't. When we start the video and I'm standing next to her, I'm like almost out of frame. And I remember adjusting my tripod, trying to make sure I could get in frame. And then when I watched it back, I thought, oh my goodness, I look like a giant, which is great. I mean, some people really want to be tall. So I'm glad to be tall. I'm glad to be able to reach things and have long legs. That's that. I'm glad to be healthy. I'm glad to be here. Jasmine also says, I like the background color. I'm so happy with the background color of my project. It's I know this camera quality and the lighting isn't perfect, but it's kind of a real beige, which I think lets all of the colors speak well, which mostly I went and looked for another color after doing the Zoom sessions and seeing so many people's beautiful swatches. Even if you're not using a background color, people had found such great combinations of things that just let the eye trace what was going on, which is great. Dee Dee says that's very different from my original swatches. It kind of is, yeah. It's the same colors though. The all the contrast colors. I have 7 contrasts are the same ones. That line from Sweet Georgia that I initially put together on their own. All right, I'm going to stay here for about 10 minutes more because then I have to go visit my husband. I got home from work. We said hello to all the cats, and then I came upstairs to do this. I'm just so grateful for all of you. I was reflecting on life and how my life feels so much different now. I started posting videos, I think last year in October or November, I posted a video about the field sweater. And then in December, I sat down and filmed a few things. And I told Ned that starting January 1, I wanted to post a video every week. And I have. I've posted either 1 video or 2 videos each week since January. And sometimes it's stressful. Sometimes there are technological issues and a video has an error and it won't export, or I just can't get everything filmed well. And I either, I don't know, I use something else or I delay it, but it gets up eventually. And I'm so, what was I saying? The point of all of this, I feel like I have more purpose in my life. And I am always very critical of myself, kind of hyper aware, which I wish I could turn it off at times. And knitting and crafting helps me do that. But having these names pop up in the comments, feeling like I've really made friends in this community, has given me so much purpose and sense of belonging. And that's what I wish for everyone in the world to find. I think many of you already have that. It could be through your family that you feel that sense of belonging and purpose. It might be your pets that you provide a great life for. It could be your work situation, your career, a friendship you have. I mean, really, it can exist in so many different ways. And for me, I just felt like I was floating around with different skills and different things I had invested in, but I didn't really feel like I had too much purpose. And through this community, I really feel so excited to do so many things in life. And it's because of the welcome you've given me and the intention you have with your comments and your conversations we have. So thank you. Okay, skipping through the comments, I want to find the rest of the things people might have asked before I go. Someone says good morning to everyone from Japan. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Yes, someone says I'm a stocky dude too, and the idea of making stuff and fingering at my size scares me. Yes, anytime I choose to do a project in fingering weight, I'm kind of like, oh, it's going to be a lot of stitches, which is fine. Sometimes they go by quickly. But yeah, I typically choose DK or worsted so that my sweaters move along at a better pace. Clawtooth has asked if we look at their color swatch on the Ravelry group to weigh in, trying to decide between swapping contrast and main color in a 1x1 or a 1x2 configuration. Yes, I'll go look at it when we finish this. Aurora says, this is so fun. I don't knit yet, but you really inspired me to start. Well, that's very sweet. Thanks for being here. Oddballs says a similar thing. I want you to know you inspired me to learn how to knit this summer. and you've already made your first sweater. That's incredible. I'm very impressed. Jay Every asks, um, am I and our Ned going to Rhinebeck? We're not going. I've never been to a fiber festival. I take that back. I've been to Wild and Woolly that happens in Berea, Ohio, on the west side of Cleveland. But I've never been to anything outside of my own city. Uh, we had it on the calendar, but Ned has a work trip during Rhinebeck, so then I would have been going by myself, and we decided maybe we'll try to go next year. And we have a set of friends and a family member that both live pretty close by, so we thought we'd try to go and make it a trip to visit with them, and maybe we could all go to Rhinebeck together. So hopefully next year I'll be able to go to Rhinebeck. And if I'm going, I'll tell everyone. I'll give you warning. Holly asks a great question about the cowl. Um, right now, Holly's using the magic knot, but not cutting the ends. Since this essentially gets closed off, can you just not cut the ends? Yes. If you're making the cowl, you're working in the round, and eventually all of that is going to be seamed together, the start and the end. So you don't have to cut anything. You could carry your colors up. It's going to be hidden. So it's totally up to you how you want to do it, which is nice. And Aurora asks, can you sign up for the newsletter without doing the make along? Yes, if you aren't going to join in because you're not ready, or even people who've signed up who decide they're not going to follow through and make the project, that's okay. You're totally welcome to sign up. I think the link is in the description box below this video. And if you don't see it here, you can go to any of my other recent videos, and the link is there in the description box. So feel free to sign up, and then you'll get the emails about Zoom sessions and other things we're doing for the make along. All right, all right, all right. Oh, Macarena, great idea for a future make along. What I consider partnering with a yarn company to create a kit for those of you who might want it. Yes. In the future, I think I want to keep doing make alongs. I don't know if they would happen every year. Maybe they'll happen every other year, but I think it's a really nice thing to do with the community. And I don't want it to feel like pressure that people always have to participate, but it might be a project that you want to do, or a certain style of project that seems right to do as part of a make along. And yes, I think for the next thing I do, I would want to create um, kits or create some resource of fiber for people that want to purchase fiber and don't necessarily have local shops or places to look at things in person. So I think that's a great idea. And Lisa asks, can we urge the experienced knitters to check on the Ravelry discussion board to answer questions? That's a great idea. So if you are comfortable navigating Ravelry, and if you've already joined that group, or if you're willing to go join the Make Along group, maybe check into some of the conversations going on, and you might be able to help answer people's questions. I'm not able to answer everything that comes through. I also don't know the answer to everything. So that's a great idea. The people that feel very experienced and might be able to help clarify and give guidance, that would be nice if you had some time to go sift through and see if you can answer a question or two. Okay. I have to go very soon, but I want to see if there are a couple other questions I should answer first. There are so many comments. I'm honored. And you're all having great conversations here. Okay, I'm reading quickly and I'm going to talk faster. It's like Gilmore Girls. Everybody's talking about how tall they are. I like that. Ned and I have a big conversation that goes back and forth about our difference in height. He has claimed that we're only 2 inches different in height, but I think we are significantly more. I think we're further apart. So we'll see. He's right outside the door. I don't want him to overhear this. Okay, just scrolling through. Just trying to find the last couple questions. Myra asked, what is my thought on random color placement as opposed to a fixed pattern? I think if your colors have enough contrast, random will work well. For me, I have 2 blues that are similar, 2 purples that are similar. So I want to make sure those are always separate. So if I were pulling randomly, I wouldn't want to put my 2 blues right in a row because it might create too big of a band of color. But you might like the idea of seeing stripes appear. I don't want mine to look striped, so I wanted to create something that's scattered. But if you have a lot of colors, or if your colors have a lot of contrast, then I think going random is great and probably easier to keep track of. All right, I'm almost to the end of the comments. Tony was asking, is there any way to see everyone's swatches? So if people are willing to take pictures, if you're already on Instagram, post it on Instagram, use the make along hashtags, either Cglass MAL, Cglass Make Along, or Mark Along. And that way, if you click on those hashtags, you'll be able to scroll through and see what everyone's done. If you're on the Ravelry groups, you can post your pictures there. And a lot of people have posted them on the Ravelry group. So, Tony, go check that out if you want to see people's colors. All right. Sandy says we should all go to Rhinebeck next year and do a meetup. I agree. I hope I will get to go to Rhinebeck, and if so, I'll absolutely say, if you did any of the sea glass projects with me, come meet up, and I want to see things in person, and I want to meet you all in person. Oh, Clawtooth asked, is Big Cat's name really Big Cat? Yes. His real name initially was Pussyweather. Like Merryweather, but Pussyweather. Now it's Big Cat because he's a big cat. He used to be bigger when I first got him. He was a really big cat. And then once he was home and on a normal diet and not as stressed out, he slimmed down. He got pretty healthy. All right. I'm going to start saying my goodbye. I'm saying it very slowly, just scrolling through. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Again, if you have a specific question about the pattern, feel free to email me. If you email me with a question, make sure you tell me which pattern you're doing. So if it's the pullover sweater, say, I'm doing the pullover sweater, and then ask your question. And I have all the patterns here on my end, so I can look at whatever row, whatever page you're on, and hopefully give you some clarity. And if there's other stuff that you want to use as a sounding board, you can post in the Ravelry groups, and hopefully people will weigh in and give you some opinions. All right. The next time I'll see you, you can watch my videos that are going up. We have a video going up tomorrow about a Burra Bear that's on the shelf there. But the next time we'll talk about sea glass might be the Zoom sessions for this month. So if you haven't already signed up for the email list, you can find that in the description box below or in the description box of my other recent videos. And then you will be on those next batches of newsletters and Zoom links that are going out. So Thanks so much. It's so good to see you and hear from you all tonight. I hope you have a restful evening or day, and good luck getting started with your projects. I can't wait to see your progress. Thanks so much. See you soon. Bye.